Jill Fisher?
Jill?
Jill, 2 minutes for you.
2 minutes, huh?
Yep.
I'm back here because last year I was here talking about short-term rentals, the whole so-called Airbnb problem. I'm not personally affected by this, but I've had 3 friends and acquaintances come to me and indicate that they're having real problems. One has to do with a town employee who evidently is not on the same page as you all are, if you are on the same page. And I'm not going to name names, but I'm concerned that there's mixed messages getting out there about how acceptable these short-term rentals are. It was July 7th, 2016, when Jeremy Wilder had a letter to the editor talking about this, saying that these short-term rentals are essentially hotels. I'm concerned because realtors continue to promote houses for sale as potential Airbnb locations. And I guess I just want to emphasize, I know the comp plan is going on now, and I know that some of the feelings were that the comp plan would address this. I went to a meeting of the comp plan, and it sounded to me, and I may have gotten this wrong, but it sounded to me like they were saying that this is a shorter term issue and we have long-term concerns. Well, I have long-term concerns. I'm an urban planner, as many of you know, and the implications for a community, if this gets out of control, which now we've gone a number of years, for destination tourist communities, it's going to be a growing problem. We need to manage this. We can't just let it go for a free-for-all. And I'm hoping that the comp plan will address this, that the consultant will do some research, will come up with some solutions. There's a couple ideas I've identified. Simply requiring that an owner be on site, or that if they're opening their home as they would to any other guest, I don't see a problem with that. It's when they buy a property, put a ton of money into it, making it not affordable for anyone else to buy, ultimately, and then have a series of weekend people renting. This can't be handled on a complaint basis. You cannot do enforcement on a complaint basis. You've got to find another way. Special use permit, perhaps, is a way of dealing with it, but I'm asking you, after a year, over a year now, to start to think about this and get something going. I think it's really sad. And just one other thing is, as I say, it's the long-term impacts on our community of not having places affordable for full-time residents, people who live and work and play here, and who make up our committees, our town boards, all of that. We need to make sure we are a fully functioning community. And I'm just concerned. I've seen this issue in other communities, and I just hope we can follow up. I did make a suggestion, Bill, to you a few months ago, that a letter be sent out from the town to all the realtors, simply stating that these short-term rentals are not allowed under the zoning code. And I hope that isn't still an issue.
Jill, just to answer, last year Jeremy was hopeful that we would have the comprehensive plan further along and that would help to resolve this. That wasn't the case. And so several months ago, I did appoint a committee to take a look at this. Councilman Richard Hefner is the chair of that committee.
Oh, good.
And I'll let him answer in a minute as to when he thinks he might have a report coming. But I have preach to the choirs, and in fact, your suggestion that homeowners be present, that's really the only time short-term rentals are permitted. That our law already says that. You can have a B&B, you can have a guest cottage, but the property owner must have a presence. So you can't be renting these whole houses. Now, what Richard's committee may come back with may indeed permit something like that, but what we're talking about ultimately is more permitting. Whether it be a permit just like a guest cottage or a B&B, or whether it require a trip to the planning board, I don't think we've worked out those nuances just yet. But we are working on that.
And it should be a primary residence too, not a secondary, second homeowner's residence.
So,
But I'd be
thank
happy to come and...
Let me explain what we've been doing. We've been meeting for about 2 to 3 months now, trying to get as I said before, trying to get our hands around it and see how big it is, where the problems are. Where we are now is we're in the process of finalizing an application, finalizing restrictions. We have some more work to do on zoning and things like that, special use permits. All these things you brought up are under discussion. Hopefully, in a month or two, we knew we weren't going to get it done for this summer. But by the end of the year, we'll have a presentation to the board. Hopefully, then we'll also have input from the public. But we are seriously working on it. And part of it's going to have to deal with enforcement. We're going to have to hire somebody. And all these things. So that's where we're trying to put this whole puzzle together to make sure it's legal and effective.
I would also add one last thing that I believe all this discussion we've had since the beginning of the year was that our first meeting when I basically said, look, most of these situations are not legal, and at the very least it got owners who were doing this to clamp down, and so we don't have quite as many noise complaints as we did last year. We don't have quite as much garbage issues. So we have seen some minimal effect, which is a step in the right direction. So thank you, Jill.
And the comp plan is addressing this also. The people on the comp plan know that Richard's working on it. We know right now it is illegal to do short-term rentals unless you're present. So, I mean, we are aware of what's going on. We will try and put, something substantial into the comp plan that will address it. Probably a lot of it coming from Richard's committee and his recommendations.
That's great to hear.
A lot of people, I should say too, and I share, one of the reasons I wanted to get involved in this is I share your thinking about lack of affordable housing in this town for young people. Those cottages that we all used to rent at one point are no longer there. And even for seniors and families of low to moderate income. Those are the people who coach our little leagues and our soccer teams and, work for the, So there's a lot of balancing here and trying to get it right, but we'll give it a shot. We're giving it a shot. And I'll let you know if anything comes up or, keep in touch.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to add something to the conversation, just in case people didn't know. The county, some things I'm aware that the county is doing. The county wants their 2% occupancy tax from any Airbnb.
Well, some of them do.
The county.
If they wanted it,
Not all of
we would have it.
No, the county.
I mean, they should have implemented that,
Well,
and they
I haven't
haven't.
finished yet.
Yeah.
So the county is actually going on the Airbnb website, and the county is trying to look at the map of Airbnb in Ulster County, and the county is trying to figure out where the Airbnbs are, and the county is sending letters to the Airbnb, to the property owners when Airbnb says there's an Airbnb. That the flaw in the plan is they don't always get it right because you can't tell from the map who actually owns the property. They're putting 2 and 2 together and getting it wrong sometimes because I got a letter. So I know that because I got a letter and I don't have an Airbnb. But I can tell you that the county, and maybe, I don't know whether Richard wants to tie in to the people in the county that are doing this. I don't know whether Ellen would like to tie in because they are in their own way working out a list of who the Airbnb owners are in Ulster County, and we may be able to tie into some of that because they do want their occupancy tax, and they are sending you, if you are an Airbnb owner, they're sending you the information to register. They're sending you so I just want to let you know the county is active in their part, and we may be able to benefit from some of their research and homework.
It's my understanding, I don't know where the letter came from, whose office is it? Elliot Arbach?
Finance. this guy,
You know, Elliot,
Burton Goldman.
the controllers put together a large number of studies and examinations of the whole thing. The problem, as Bill mentioned, though, is that the 2% tax has not been enacted as far as Airbnb, and there seems to be a hang-up where other counties have enacted that tax. Ulster County has not enacted it yet.
The effective date for the room occupancy tax is March 1, 2005, and taxes must be paid from that day forward or any time thereafter upon opening.
We don't need to-
The county is waiting for a determination from the state about the taxation part, as I understood it.
Well, I appreciate your attention to this
Thank you,
matter.
Jill.
It's something that I know is, been going back for a while,
Okay.
but
Jay?
it's coming up. There's more new things going on too.
Thank you.
As I said some
You
months
can have that,
ago,
that's a spare copy.
That's interesting. I don't know what that is.
Hold on, come on, Jay's got the floor.
as I
sorry.
said, as I said some months ago when the issue came up here, I believe that the town board does not have to wait, should not wait for the comp plan to be completed before we develop a plan in relation to this. And I want to say that I'm very happy that Richard is chairing the committee and working on this.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
Okay, Iris, I think you were next.
Okay, I was wondering if there is a plan to take care of our sidewalks and walkways in terms of how much grass is growing in between the concrete and the bluestone in town. It's starting to look really crappy in town. And, I mean, it's the best way to put it.
Those are
And I know
private
that
sidewalks,
some-
they're not town
Well, I was
sidewalks.
just gonna say, I know a lot of it is owned by the store owners, and they should be taking care of it. But there's also the bluestone in front of the town hall, there's the bluestone right in front of this building, and...
Actually, there's a plan to replace this.
Replace the stone?
Yeah, it's in bad condition.
Looks fine to me, right here in front.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been crushed by tires.
Well, and I think that's another comp plan item too, that we want the comp plan to help govern that for the town in terms of, because if as it's,
This is just a...
Whoa.
wait a
First
minute.
off, Laura, hold
This is
on.
just a maintenance issue, you know, to take care of, and to maybe even say something to the store owners, because, I mean, there is one place in town that looks like they are taking care of it, because I haven't seen any grass there. But, you know, it's in the stone, and it's everywhere, and it's just looking so run down and crappy.
And I believe Councilman Wenk is going to be meeting with the chamber and the merchants to discuss sidewalks.
I've been waiting to be informed on when this meeting will take place. At this point, I don't know. I hope it's soon. I wanted to speak to the chamber in relation to all of the dangerous sidewalks that exist in this town. Several times over the past years, people have come in here and spoken to this board saying, you ought to try to get around town in a wheelchair and see what that's like.
Right,
You know.
yeah.
In my walking around town, I see sidewalks that are deadly dangerous. Deadly. And I'm not exaggerating. The probability of somebody tripping and getting hurt or worse is very real. And so I am waiting anxiously to be informed on when I will get an opportunity to speak to the owners, because there is private property involved.
Yeah, I know.
And
Hopefully next month you'll have a nice report to give back to us.
Okay.
Yes.
But in the meantime, take care of the stone that's in front of the town.
I will take a look at that tomorrow.
yeah. But I do want to still say though, that even with the short-term focus on it, I am hoping that the comp plan gives an overall vision for how it ought to be, and then hopefully we can get grant money to improve even further than what the shop owners are doing. So I am hoping to see that, and you're on the comp plan committee too, so I thought that was one of the items that we said would for sure get covered in the comp plan, for a long-term plan. So, that was it for the public be heard?
That's it?
Okay, so I have one town announcement. The road in front of the Woodstock Reformed Church will be closed all day September 16th for their annual fair. just a reminder that loop won't be passable.
So, will that be two directions, closed in two directions?
It's only
That
one
loop
way
is only
anyway.
one way.
Only
Ah,
Go in,
okay, okay.
Okay, so under topics I have, actually I added another one, but I have noise ordinances. So a while back, I sent out two noise ordinances that Clayton had done some research on. One from the town of Ulster, a 4-page law, and the other from the village of Saugerties. Ulster was, their response about enforcement was so-so. They didn't really seem to deal with it too much. I spoke with the chief over in Saugerties, the town of Saugerties, who also covers the village, and he seemed to feel that it was a very short, concise, easy to enforce law. The Ulster law does set certain decibels, so it's pretty objective. Well, the village law is a little bit more subjective, but again, the police felt that it wasn't difficult to enforce. And also, it's at some point they set time when all music from bars, restaurants, and whatnot has to be inside, which is one of the complaints we've been getting a lot of. So I just wanted some feedback from the board as to how you thought you might want to proceed. Yep, Richard.
Like you said, the two examples you gave us, one is more, the Ulster one deals with decibel levels, and obviously that's more objective. Just reading from the Saugerties one, which I actually kind of liked, except for there's some gray area here where it says, where they deal with unreasonable noise. They don't deal with decibel levels. They describe unreasonable noise as anything disturbing, excessive, or offensive sound that disturbs a reasonable person of normal sensitivities. Well, since I'm neither,
You're not sensitive.
How would you enforce it?
how would you enforce it?
Yeah, there you go.
But I like because part of what this does is it goes to the complaints, for example, of boom boxes down to Sawkill or Big Deep wafting through the town, or all afternoon and disturbing neighbors. They may not be breaking a decibel level, but if you're sitting in your backyard trying to read a book, they're annoying as hell.
Right.
So I don't know how you come to grips with that subjectivity. I do like the Saugerties law, though.
And keep in mind, I didn't send these laws out to say we should adopt them as is. I mean, we can take and tweak. We can continue to look for other laws. Really, these laws came from Clayton, and my objective was to get something from him that he felt was easy enough for them to enforce. Right now, we have a decibel limit in the zoning law, but usually noise is at night, so it's problematic getting a building inspector out in the evening, 2 or 3 times a weekend. So I think it would be.
Just to include they both deal with things like dogs barking all night long, or cranking up the weed whacker at 6 in the morning. I mean, they both deal with things like that. The difference is how it's measured.
You're next, Jay. Are you done, Richard?
Yeah.
Jay?
Yeah, in the meantime, can we have our police who are called because of the noise thing, at least inform the source of the noise that complaints have been made?
Oh, they do. They do.
I'm not sure that has happened all the time from discussions that I've had over there
Where?
at the police department.
I know they're out a lot dealing with noise issues.
Oh, yes, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they go out on every single call? That I don't know, but they do go out a lot.
Yeah. This may be, I've in the past asked that we have a sit-down with the chief about other issues, and this may be another one in the meantime, on an interim basis, that we could have a discussion about. Maybe the chief needs more help or different kinds of help or whatever. We should be informed.
Well, budget time is coming up, in a month, we'll be sitting down with all the departments.
Right.
And we can,
But again, in the meantime, can't we have a discussion?
with the chief?
Sure.
Yeah, what do you want to have a discussion about? I mean, I can ask him to come to the next meeting.
Please don't,
Well,
no.
it could be, one of the issues could be if he has enough. What?
I said, I prefer a private meeting then. You know, if you're gonna meet with the chief, I think you and,
Well, either way.
You know, if you have a specific agenda, I'd be happy to, I wouldn't want to call them in here and just have a rambling conversation. If you have
No, we could lay out,
specific,
for each of us could lay out issues that we want to discuss before we have that meeting,
okay,
right?
that's fine. So if everybody wants to email me topics that they might want to discuss with the chief.
Okay.
Susan, did-
this is,
Oh, sorry.
as far as, I read both of the proposals. I felt that the Saugerties noise ordinance was more applicable to our town because it just, a lot of the issues they talked about had to do with like a small town. The other one, there were issues that just don't apply to us at all. So I was much prefer the Saugerties noise ordinance, but I also think that we need to look into the machinery we have. I know we do have something, or we did have something, but I think if we had some kind of more modern machinery that actually measured the noise decibels that was accurate, the police would have something to work with. So those are my only suggestions at this point. Now that we are accepting this one, I'll look this over again.
Well,
See
and
if
again,
there
we
are
don't
any-
have to, I mean, we can take this and tweak it.
Exactly.
This is just a starting point. We did have a very good noise meter. I mean, we spent a lot of money on it. The problem is that they're temperamental pieces of equipment, and they don't travel well.
Maybe they have better,
We can look
Equipment
into,
out now.
we can look into that.
Well, in past discussions about this issue, I recall that one of the difficulties was the distance from the source code to the input of the devices recording the noise.
Well, our law specifies,
Pardon?
our law says from the property line.
Ah, okay.
And actually, the Sorgeties one does have a reference to distance in some
Yeah,
instances.
right.
Yeah.
Including property lines and...
Yeah, well, I do like the Saugerties one as well. If we don't have decibel levels, which it doesn't have,
Yeah.
should it have something specific as opposed to people's judgment?
The
The Saugerties, yeah, because I don't know whether it should, if we're preferring that one, which most of us are, I think, should we try to put any decibel levels in there? But I do like the way they put in the times of day, that they want to have between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., things need to be quiet. That makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, they're putting in some guidelines in there,
Right.
so.
The one thing I would point out is that it does have a fairly specific standard in here where it says that noise from any sound reproduction system operating or playing any radio, portable radio, or tape player, television tape deck, or similar device that reproduces or amplifies sound in such a manner as to be heard 60 feet from the source or over any property line. That's pretty specific.
That's what...
So if you're 60 feet from a restaurant and you can hear amplified music, it's breaking the law.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's true, that is a specific, you're right.
you can't get much more, so they gotta carry a tape measure, but,
so it would
They
have
can
to
walk
be
through
pretty
it, figure
quiet, because from my house on Parkman, I can hear
Yeah, we'd have
the
to-
music at the rec field, I can hear the drum circle.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that noise carries, so
Yeah, but
it,
is there a specific time frame when that occurs?
I'm not complaining
No,
about
I'm
it,
just saying what
the
he
noise.
was- I just read.
it isn't here,
Now,
but that doesn't mean that we can't.
Right, if you wanted to do like
You can-
11 to 7 or something
Right.
like that.
you can also realize too, we're between two mountains and things, I hear everything too up in my place.
Live along the
But you
street,
can
you hear
also restrict it to like the business district is different than, say, over where you live.
Absolutely.
Things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I agree, we want to add some specifics, because I would think 60 feet isn't a lot of
Not in town.
distance for things to carry.
It isn't, and keep in mind, this is
My
in,
wife's boys carry that for her.
so this could benefit you.
Yeah. Do I have to recuse myself?
No, I'll let you vote on it. You know, and the 60 feet, we could also put in a time limit. I mean, 60 feet during the day
It's not so bad, but 10
might be
o'clock
too,
at
well,
night.
might be, not far enough, whereas,
Right. After 10 o'clock at night, it would be fine.
Exactly.
Right, yeah, that's my thought as well.
I would remind everybody that the big problem we have, I think, is the new music from the new bars in town. And, if we set a limit where, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever, we came up with and said, basically no noise from 60 feet, that would force them all inside and shutting the doors.
Yeah. Although I have to say, well, here's just an opinion, but part of what makes Woodstock vital, I think, and the weekenders come, is rock and roll has its music. 10 o'clock might be too early to shut it down on a weekend, maybe 11 o'clock is the
I'm
weekend.
passing no judgment on time right
Right,
now.
and I think it's part of what makes Woodstock vital is all
Right.
the, Woodstock's alive.
Midnight
So-
might be, whatever. But
Yeah, so I think we can tweak it a little bit. I think it's a good starting, I think the Saugatuck one's a good starting
Okay.
point. Maybe some tweaking about zones, and some tweaking about timeframes for the different things, but it's a good starting point.
I know when I worked for the police department, if you have a specific time, there was nothing like the, random, I don't know when they're gonna stop playing, blah, blah, blah. People be
right.
very upset about that, but if you say
they
to
know.
them, they know at 10 o'clock the music's gonna shut down or be half as loud, and then people would be satisfied with
Yeah.
that, as long as at 10 o'clock the music quieted down.
Right.
we also can
Here,
set,
here.
we can also set weekday and weekend.
weekend.
It's one thing to have it going on all week when people are trying
Sure.
to sleep and
And
go to
work,
work
yeah,
the
for
next
the next
morning.
day, sure.
Whereas, there could be a little bit more
Yeah.
leeway on the weekends.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the Saugerties law is the platform we'd like to
To
start
start
with.
with, yeah. And did Clayton give any input yet on either of these?
Clayton liked both of them. I think I believe he leaned towards the village. He thought it was an easy one that would be good for us, easy for him to enforce. And again, I spoke with the chief from Saugerties. He's very happy with it. He doesn't have any difficulties in enforcing it. So okay.
Cool.
So why don't we take a couple of weeks
Good.
to review this, to tweak it, and let's email around our thoughts and suggestions and see if in October or early November we can't have something to go to public hearing with.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
and I had a question before we get into the other topics. A new topic, when we're ready for a new topic.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I had, and sorry for not, I didn't mention this to you ahead of time, but there was an interesting letter to the editor in the Woodstock Times about drones at the fireworks.
Yes.
And I was very interested in the letter to the editor. I didn't know if there's anything that we wanted to do or not do, or we can think about it. But I thought the letter was very interesting. It talked about the illegality of flying a drone over a mob, well, not a mob of people, but a lot of people. And I even, because I was at the fireworks, and I even was thinking myself, I wasn't really happy having that drone. Who was darting here and darting there.
Right.
And I just didn't know. I don't know if we know who owned the drone. And
I asked Clayton to look into it. I haven't heard back.
perfect.
So
Okay, that's
I will remind him again and
yeah.
see if
Okay,
he can.
perfect.
That incident also flies in the face of Woodstock's drone resolution, which forbids any activity of the sort that occurred during the fireworks display. It's not just a federal aviation crime, but it also runs up against Woodstock's particular own drone resolution.
Which is just a sediment, it's not enforceable. It's not enforceable.
Well, we can make it enforceable,
We-
and considering this...
We could make it a law, but as is, it's just a memorializing
well,
resolution.
because it has happened, and in a particularly dangerous time and place. I think that we should buttress whatever the FAA is saying and say,
You see,
okay,
the only thing I would remind you is that the gentleman who wrote that letter to the Times,
David Lex.
yeah, basically said, look, the FAA regulates all this.
Yeah,
So, I don't think there's a lot of need for us to be writing new regulations. It's just that the police need to look into it and see if they can decide.
well, I think that, Bill...
There's already a law in place, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Regulations.
In addition, I think that having a local native, law that does not supersede but helps the federal aviation, which is not local. They,
Well, Jay, why don't you look into it and into the federal and craft, if you want to craft.
I'll do that.
Okay.
And I will rephrase our resolution.
Yeah, and thank you for having Clayton look into it.
You're very
That's
welcome.
excellent.
The other topic, which I didn't put on the agenda, but I thought late this afternoon, big and little deep. So at our last meeting, I did throw out there, there's a need to do something, and it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. The one private swimming hole has been closed, and by the end of the summer, nobody was using it. The other swimming hole, the county's going to be doing some work there next year. And they actually may be removing the section, this one small section of beach that they actually have on that property to the point where people won't be able to use it. And then the rest of the swimming hole there is private property. And I have a sense that the property owner's somewhat at the end of his rope with folks trespassing, which is only going to put more and more people down to big and little deep. So I really would like to, and we can take a couple of months. I mean, at this point, there's not going to be any more swimming, but I would like to have something in January that we can act upon, be it some type of permit system. We're not going to be able to park somebody down there all weekend long monitoring it. But I think we need to have something there so that the police, when we do get complaints or periodically on the weekend when they do pull in there, they can enforce different things. So think about how we would best do that. Have conversations with Clayton. I mean, that's one thing. That's one other topic. I did talk to him about the permit. I talked with a couple of the guys about the permits. A couple of them seem to think that would at least give them a tool. Again, we're not going to have guys down every weekend checking permits, but simply that it's a tool to remove people if there's a problem.
Well, and I agree with you before when you brought up the permit idea, and I still agree with it, because also on the big and little deep sign, the sign says big deep, right on the sign could be permit required.
Yeah.
And as we said before, it can come to the town clerk, can go to the dispatch, which is open 24/7.
Right.
So I agree with that idea, the permit
Right.
idea, and there can be a sign that says so, and that may be a deterrent, and that may have fewer people going in there, and like you say, a tool for the police.
Right.
Even though they're not going to be there all the time, at least, like you say, if there is a problem, they can do something about
Right.
it.
And the permitting system, dispatch can handle this. They already do the burn permits. It's a very, I want to make it simple enough so that if somebody does pull up
Yeah.
and sees the sign, go to dispatch at 76 Tinker Street.
We may have a solution already in hand. The clerk's office provides stickers on vehicles so that they can park for free anytime in town lots. And I know that not all people arrive in a car, but those folks that do arrive in a car can point to the sticker, because as Woodstock residents, I would assume every one of us is permitted to enjoy the waters. And then we can look for an additional, look for an additional paper or something that people that walk in can carry with them and show to anybody that's interested. So we could already be covering many of Woodstock citizens.
Well, we can take a couple of months and think about how best to do it. I will tell you that, I'm not trying to keep non-Woodstockers out. I mean, that's not, to me, that's not very welcoming. That's not the community that I want to live in. So I'm open to allowing, anybody to come and get a permit. They can get a permit, and if they're just going to be there for a day. Part of the thing is too, that the permit requirement will be that they need to read the rules and sign on the bottom of the line. Because that way then you can say, hey, wait a second, you got the permit here, you signed it, you know that you're not allowed to have music here, you know that you're not allowed to be barbecuing, you know that you're not allowed to have groups of over 10 people, and
Or leave your trash.
the trash is, the guys were down there for 3 hours last weekend picking up.
Right.
There were
That's
three
part
or
of the
four
rules,
of
right?
them.
Part of the rules,
Yeah.
So
carrying.
I think most of us, or all of us, are in agreement that we do want some kind of permitting system, so it's
Okay.
just a matter of
Yeah, I
now
agree.
getting into the details of it and writing something up that we all
So I'll,
like the details, because I think, I definitely want to permit it, and I do want to allow it to people who are non-residents.
so you're good with allowing non-residents? That's what you-
Absolutely,
okay,
it's
yeah.
just what you said, we want them to know the
Yeah,
rules, so
okay.
they're not barbecuing, making a racket. I mean, all the emails I got about the neighbors who can't sit in their backyard because there's boom boxes.
Well, and also knowing that there's no
Going down.
lifeguard. I mean, it would be nice to have them, it would be good for us to have it stated, swim at your own risk.
Visit at your own risk.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because that's another thing that they should be signing up for.
So I will,
If you go on, I did go on the line and I looked for, I just typed in swimming in the Catskills. And talk about Airbnb ads, the number of sites that come up, best swimming holes in the Catskills is amazing. And there's Big Deep, and some of them have this Sawkill. I mean, the advertising on these things I don't know who does these things, but it's amazing. So I can understand why all these people are showing up.
yeah.
And you can't fight that tide. You could write these people and say, please take us off. But, and
They're
even
not-
the New
it's
York
not gonna
Times,
happen.
the New York Times the other day on the front page of, I think the Metro section had a big picture of the blue hole over the way. It was a beautiful setting, and people are swimming and basically inviting
That's-
people to come up and swim in the blue hole.
That's been decimated.
It's been decimated, and I just don't want to see that happen here. It's getting close.
Okay. Jay?
Yeah, excuse me, if we are going to have permits for visitors, and I agree with you, I don't think that we should immediately say no visitors. But if we are, then for several reasons, they should not come to the town clerk's office, but go to the police department where they should be applying for and getting.
Because they're open on the weekends.
Pardon?
They're open on the weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, our clerk is very busy, as we all know.
Yes.
And not here on the weekends. And I can think of other reasons, but send
Well, at the
people
very
to-
least, it's got to be a dispatch.
Yeah, but I think it would have, the language in this proposed idea for a permit would have much more force having to get it at the police department. I think that would
Okay.
be a part of it.
We're in agreement there.
Yeah, and I have a related question, though. And probably we're never going to do this because we don't seem to do it, but we do have the pool, and was the pool actively used this year for the summer camp?
Yes.
Well, that's what it's used for.
Well, right, so my question is, this is another letter to the Woodstock Times, so I'm kind of, agreeing with some of the letters I'm reading. Anyway, so about why don't we have the pool open after camp ends or on weekends or on...
Too small.
It's tiny.
Too small.
Okay.
There's no way you could accommodate, I mean, you had to have a line of people waiting to get in.
You can't swim.
You can only,
You
yeah.
couldn't get 15
You could.
adults in there.
Okay.
You can't get that
And
many people,
the
it's very
expense
tiny.
of
I know there's
You need a
expense, which is an
lifeguard
issue,
and-
sure. And then you would need like...
And the
okay.
insurance, I think they just love it that it's only used for the summer camp, our
okay.
insurance.
Okay, so it's just
I'm not
feasible.
saying
It's just not feasible at the moment.
it's not feasible. It's not that it's not possible. It's not
Most of it
feasible.
is very shallow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's really a wading pool.
Ah,
I know it sits there and it seems to go
Very
against
inviting,
logic.
right, on a hot day.
yeah, okay, well, thanks for that clarification.
I would just remind everybody, there's a great swim club over in Xena too, for folks who live around. The other thing
Plus, New
is that,
Paltz has the county pool.
and I'm also very
And
optimistic
Rosendale opened their pool again.
that,
But locals-
That's what town is.
Kingston is.
What's that?
Town
Is that new? Because I used to swim in that, before they closed it, I used to swim there.
is, it was town.
Back in like 15 years ago, I pay my I pay $6 and go swim, so maybe it was 20 years ago, but I haven't been there for a while. But
And I'm still optimistic that the state, it won't happen next year, but I hope maybe the year after.
Wilson.
Wilson's so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Which
they
would,
are.
would be a tremendous
That
boost.
would be the biggest addition in terms of taking the pressure off.
Yeah.
Good point, yeah.
Okay, so I will produce a list. I'd like to try and keep it to one page, so that they're not reading an encyclopedia and then a signature at the bottom. I'll put together something over the next month or so and share it with you, and you can all add, subtract, delete, comment, whatever. And then we'll plan, sometime by January or February that we'll implement
Yeah.
something.
Very good.
Okay, so I got some resolutions. Accept the resignation of Bill Dulier from the Woodstock Environmental Commission and, wait a second, sorry. Be it resolved to accept the resignation of Bill Dulier from the Woodstock Environmental Commission and thank him for his many years of service. And be it further resolved to authorize the town clerk to advertise the open position. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved to waive building permit fees for the improvements to the public bathrooms at 10 Rock City Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Be it resolved to hire Cody Chase as a full-time MEO at the Town of Woodstock Highway Department at $20 per hour starting date September 18, 2017.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Be it resolved to waive town hall rental fees for the Woodstock Comedy Festival for use on September 15th and 16th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And then announcements from the board. Kathy, I know you had an announcement.
Yes, this is to my friend Lenny Kislin. Hope I don't start crying, but I will miss him. I will miss your jokes, your sense of humor, your artwork, and your complaining at poker games. Most of all, I'll miss your heart. And the town lost an amazing person. So, to Lenny Kislin, I was lucky to know you all these years. And to Nancy, I don't know, Nancy's the best caregiver I know in this town, and my heart goes out to you.
Keep the Kislin family in our thoughts.
Yeah.
I'd like to say I agree totally with that statement.
You'd like to or you will?
You do.
I do.
You do.
I do. Now we're married. I do. And also to add, I'll very much miss his wonderful artwork. Wonderful, wonderful.
He had quite a creative streak, that's for sure.
You did.
Any other comments, questions from the board?
No.
Yeah. Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Oh, you.
Yeah. A question, Bill. How come on these two last items we went out of order?
We didn't go out of order, Jay. If you look here, it gives the whole list.
Yes.
So it's got publicly heard, announcements,
Yeah.
town announcements,
Right.
presentations,
Right.
topics, resolutions, and announcements from the board.
Yeah.
Okay?
But-
But it always has the full resolutions at the end. We didn't go out of order.
Well, it seems like that from the way this is printed.
Yes, yeah, but you see, if you look here, it's got all the resolutions,
Yeah.
the short resolutions.
I understand that. In any event, several things that we've spoken about before. By the way, what's the status of the bus company moving there?
I called them yesterday, didn't get a call back yet, but I know that they're working on it. I don't know at what point where they're at.
Okay.
So
And in relation to that, to clarify, in order to clarify some talk that we've had up here at the board, I decided to get specific about some of the details. And I've asked the highway department to measure the width of the road at the green in town and down below at the gas station and the drugstore. The road is 35 feet wide up here at the green. Down below, it's narrower. It's 32, it's a little under 32 feet. Who knew before? I got these numbers from Kevin Peters at the Highway Department. I also took it upon myself to measure a number of the buses when they're pulled up at the locations on both sides of the street. I've measured from the curb out to where the furthest edge of the bus is. And the narrowest distance that I found is 11 and a half feet when the bus had its front wheels on right up against the curb. The maximum that I found when I measured from the curb out to the furthest part of the bus was 14 feet. So I would assume that if we were to figure on, say, an average of the bus or buses, including the road, it might be 12 feet. Might be, it's okay. Now, 12 feet with two buses in mind, because we often have two buses at the same time, sometimes three. But in any event, with two buses there up at the green where the road is 35 feet, we would have 11 feet in between. That, hang on, Bill, that doesn't include clearance, okay? Down below where the road is a little narrower, with two buses, we would have 8 feet. Not so good. Now, I'm warming up to one of the issues that I raised, excuse me, in the traffic ideas that I presented to the board, that we need an officer or a trained traffic controller to handle traffic when we have these conditions. Also, I had stated that at least up here in the middle of town, that we have to make sure that the length of traffic on buses going east, that the road is clear, the parking is clear, because when it isn't, then we have even more of a problem. And so I am going through this business in order to say again that we, the board, should be having more discussions and actions in relation to the traffic plan that I submitted. One or two other points, Bill and board. Yeah, I emailed the board early this week about the traffic parked up on Meads Mountain Road. On a number of occasions, I live right there and it's pretty easy access for me. On a number of occasions, the downhill side of the road has been parked solid, bumper to bumper, from the monastery all the way down to my lane. I don't know if you know where my lane is, but it's the way. And I have written to the board suggesting, and I hope we can have a little discussion on this, suggesting that we extend the no parking $150 fine even past me a little bit down to Wiedenbarker's lane, where the road is straightened out. The last time we had this problem of the parking, John from our highway police department was up there trying to get cars that were wanting to get through, to get them to get through. He was trying to back up traffic. I was watching it. It's a bad situation and it could be improved. A bad situation because you can't get emergency vehicles through when there is traffic piled up, parked all the way along that narrow twisting road. And so I hope that the board will agree to extend the no parking $150 fine down at least to my place, but preferably a little further.
We can absolutely look at it, Jay. The one thing I'll tell you, though, that it has not alleviated the problem totally. Now, this year I have found, and I do go up and over the mountain every weekend to look into that as a first responder and as the supervisor now, it's a concern. And I do believe that the problem isn't nearly as bad as it was last year. I think that the signage definitely had some benefit, but it hasn't alleviated it all. There are still people who, I'll watch them get out of the car and I'll pull up alongside and I said, there's a sign that's, they don't give tickets, do they? I said, they do.
Well,
Sometimes they move them, sometimes they don't.
I understand.
Yeah.
And Bill, I have to disagree with you because in my opinion, it is worse this year than previous years. I have seen that downhill side of the road parked full more often this year than in previous years.
I will just tell you, it may be bad sometimes. I'm not disputing that. I will tell you, though, that this year I never had to back up and go around
Okay.
in my pickup truck. And there were literally times last year when I couldn't get down because people were on both sides of the road.
Yeah.
Can I ask when will the parking lot be done? Isn't there an expansion going on?
They're supposed to be back into that this week or next.
I
So it's
don't know.
Okay.
They stopped it because one of the neighbors wanted to use his property for the summer, and they were having a hard time getting stone delivered in a timely fashion from the local gravel bank, so they decided they would hold off until September. So I expect that they'll be back in
And how
soon.
many cars is that supposed to hold? Do you remember?
Like 40? What is
40?
it?
That number is
Somewhere between 40 and 50. You can draw that on paper, and it looks. On paper, I think it's 55 even, but they thought realistically it would be closer to somewhere between 40 and 50.
And if I could throw in two things, I will say the Mill Stream situation is far better with those signs, because it used to be perilous to try to get through with the windy road, and you can't see in all the cars, and there's one lane, and you could be, but that's so much better. I haven't had any issue since that went up. And the other comment I wanted to make before we go back to Jay, who I think wants another turn, is as we talk about the buses going down near CVS, hopefully the bus stop for the going one way is not the same spot as the bus stop going the other way, so that cars
They're
can get
offset-
around.
offset.
Exactly. So as long as they're offset, and it is a straight away. It's pretty scary up where Rock City Road comes in. You've got the bend, you're going up a hill, you really can't see, the visibility is very bad, but I think the visibility, even though as Jay points out the road is more narrow, the visibility is much better.
I just want to adjust that comment for a minute too, Jay, because I just want to be clear that I never said that the road was wider down there. I never made any claim. I hope you don't think I made a claim.
I didn't state that.
Okay, I'm just wanted to be
I
clear.
didn't say that.
The benefit down there is that that there's good sight distance because the road is so straight there, and there's no parking. But the problem, if you could get a bus to pull in the middle of town and pull parallel and tight to the curb, we wouldn't have as big a problem. The problem is they pull in at an angle and they're sticking out into the lane there.
And-
Now, there was a bus down at CVS pulled over yesterday, and there was two lanes of traffic going past it.
No. That's not my, I went down through town one day, I'm sorry, Kev, and a Trailways bus had parked in front of CVS. I don't know why, maybe it was a test run or
There's a
something.
stop there.
But I had to go into the other lane.
Yes,
Jay's
yes.
figures are right.
Yeah. Oh, you have to go into the other
But
lane.
you can see what's coming
I
because it's flat and
know, I
straight.
agree with that,
Yeah.
but I'm saying cars are still coming. If you get a big car or a truck coming, a box truck coming through the other way, you're bottled up again.
Correct.
That's all I'm saying.
Well,
It's not a perfect situation.
so I wanted to ask Jay, just because you mentioned that it's narrower down by CVS, did that mean you were changing your mind about wanting this bus stop there?
No.
Oh,
no,
okay, because
no.
I didn't think you were, I thought you were just pointing that out. But again, what I see is there's this whole backlog in the center of town, even if you have a few extra feet with, Rock City Road and then the other turn and then cars coming in, so that the buses are actually sitting there longer because there's all this congestion.
Right.
If you push them down, they're not gonna be sitting there as long because they're gonna be, stop, pick up their passengers and move on. They're not gonna be stuck with all the traffic. So I really think it'll loosen up the center of town a lot.
I agree, and I'd like to reiterate that the worst problem in the whole United States with traffic is the intersection of Rock City Road and what?
It's very cute. The worst problem in the United States.
And wait, I'm not finished. And Old Forge Road, because traffic coming down Rock City, more often than not, closes up any access into Old Forge. And invariably, because I've seen it thousands of times, vehicles coming up Mill Hill Road, wanting to turn into Rock City Road in order to gain access to the Old Forge Road. When that access area is closed by a vehicle or several, we have instant detonation of impossibility. And that's something that Bill and I have had a little talk about that.
And I am in conversation with Bob Sudlow from the county and the county highway department.
Because
about
that's got to be fixed.
Part of the issue too is the county says, oh, well, you need to get, since it's, I don't know what the footage is, 50 feet, 60 feet, 70 feet from 212, that the state has to weigh in. So, in any event, that we're having conversations about
There's another factor right there that contributes.
the sign.
Not just the sign. Traffic sometimes will come out into Rock City Road from between the old bank and the building on the corner of...
Go the wrong way.
Going the wrong way.
And, yeah, they're going the wrong way. There used to be a large sign, no exit this way, or some, and there's nothing there now. And it happens I'm at that intersection often enough, and I see it happening, and no good. Can I please go back to something that we were
No.
discussing a moment ago?
You missed your chance.
Oh, well then I'll take out again. I'll put it on the table.
What do you want to talk about?
Bill and board, can we not install another 2 or perhaps 3 signs?
Crosswalk.
So that we don't have that parking problem along Mead Mountain Road. And as I suggest, down to the Wiedenbachers, because from there on, the road is pretty straight.
Yeah.
Well, it's got to be, we have to amend the local law.
Yeah, could I
That's
recommend
why
that
I'm
we...
bringing it up to the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, could I recommend that we bring it up next week? I'd like to drive up there, because I'd like to consider, I want to seriously consider your request, and I would like to drive up there and take a look.
Drive
And-
up on a weekend.
Exactly, and that's my point then, and so if we voted on it next week, then we'd all have a chance to go take a look.
Of course.
Well, we have nothing to vote on yet. I mean, we have to write
But we,
something up.
but we could agree that we want to amend it.
Yeah.
Right, we take a look and then we would know.
Do it Saturday
When's the most
afternoon.
crowded, Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
Saturday
Saturday
afternoon.
On a good day.
I try never to go that way,
Okay.
because I don't live there.
Richard?
I would actually do it on a crisp fall day when the foliage is in full bloom, and you'll never get past the old Reynolds house. But anyway, I just want to add to Jay's traffic plan, and this kind of goes along with something Laura's brought up before, and you and I talked about it. I think within this whole planning process, we need to look at the way the crosswalks work in this town, or don't work in this town. And I think there's a way of implementing a better crosswalk design that would almost stagger traffic, much like a red light would or something like that. I think the way Rock City and Tinker and Mill Hill come together in those 3 crosswalks, I think only adds to the problem, and there's got to be a better solution. I think there has to be additional crosswalks.
Right, and I have 2 in
Down-
mind.
down
I
your
tried
way.
calling Dave Corrigan today, I didn't get through.
And
but I
down
do
towards
plan
the
to get him.
pizza plate.
Yeah, I do plan to get him back to
I
work
just
by
think if we
CBS.
look at it, and I'm no traffic expert, and maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think there just has to be a more logical way, and that will also prevent or help tourists. I just had it happen today, walking out in the middle of the street in front of you where there's no crosswalk. And because there's some spots that people naturally want to cross, but there's no crosswalk.
Right, there's too much space in between crosswalks in some places. But there
So,
was
you and I have spoken about it, and I agree. I would eliminate the crosswalk that heads from House over to Clouds.
Could
Be-
be.
be-
Yeah,
be-
I'm not-
and the reason I say that for 2 reasons. One, I know a lot of vehicles, mine included, that the new design, there's a deadly
Line of sight.
blind spot. And I can't tell, and I'm aware, and so I'm always doing this.
You're about
But
at
even
your
so,
seat
it's
trying to
difficult. If we could push people into the other crosswalk, believe it or not, your vehicle's at a different angle and it's not a problem. The other thing is that if we had people crossing that way towards the green, it would stop traffic on 212. It would allow traffic to turn left out of Rock City Road.
Road.
there you go.
And I think that's a good idea. So let me ask back to your thoughts on crosswalks. So we have the 2 in the middle of town, and we agreed.
Right.
It sounds like we're all in agreement that maybe one would be better there. Then we've got one down at Bread Alone, so there's not really any room
No, there's no more there.
between. So from Bread Alone, we go down 1 block to Sylvia's.
Is there one there?
Yeah,
There's one at Sylvia's. So
there's really quite a few. There's 3 or 4 down
Yeah,
here.
I have it mapped out. I didn't bring it tonight, but I
Down
do
by
have it.
Pine Grove
yeah,
and the pizza.
okay, well let's go. Yeah, let's go one at a
I
time.
do have it mapped out, but I didn't bring it,
I
because
don't
I do
do
have
it
it
now,
mapped out.
but I'm just saying, if, maybe we, as we're driving up the mountain, when we come back from the
We could-
mountain,
we could-
Okay.
we can look it over.
So between Bread Alone though and Sylvia's,
No.
I think we're probably good. I agree, and actually I've spoken with Dave Corrigan about putting one by the meat market there.
Somewhere around
Putting
there.
more what?
One by the meat
By the
market,
meat
A crosswalk.
by the meat market there, on that.
Somewhere
that-
around there, the
okay.
pizza place, wherever. yeah.
And then from there, you've got one in front of Ulster Savings Bank, then you've got one in front of the
No,
credit
then you're
union.
fine, I think.
Yeah, after
Now go
that,
the other way.
Now go the other way, so
Town hall.
one at Joshua's would be wonderful.
Joshua's.
It's-
And the
tried-
guild, people coming out of the guild and all
Or
that.
somewhere in that.
That would also stop traffic so
Yeah, yeah,
people could get out of
But
Tannery
the
Brook.
Joshua's issue, I think, was the line of sight.
That's one that I don't think we're ever
Right, because
going
of
to
the line of
get.
sight.
So now we go down to the town hall, which
Which we're working on.
which we're working on. And then from there, you go down to
Nancy's.
and there's one there.
Right. There's no crosswalk, well,
I
there
don't
would
think
be.
there is, I thought there wasn't a crosswalk beyond,
There is.
I thought, really, beyond the town hall?
Oh, yeah.
Nancy's,
one.
by the
The old post office.
Okay.
I think there could be another one, but.
Yeah.
I have to-
Wait a minute.
I have to look at it.
Because I do think that if we added the one at the town hall that we're working on, and what I wanted to ask Dave Corrigan about, when I connect with him, is adding the one like we're talking about around CVS or the meat market, because I think that if we add those 2, that'll give us what we need. That's my sense from looking at it. And I did map everything out on a PowerPoint.
Did
If
you
I
have
have
one
it.
by the guild or Joshua's up that way?
Bill?
Well, I think we were already told they didn't have line of sight.
Yeah, painted ourselves.
Well, that may
Well, I'm just
That
saying
may-
that is a
that
natural
may- We can ask
crossing.
again.
That's a natural crossing.
that might happen.
We can ask again.
That might
I tell you the
happen.
truth, because I
Just
pull out
like
of
a
Near
box
Street.
may happen in front of
I pull out of Near Street all the time,
Oh,
and people
foolish.
cross there all the time. So
Yeah.
it could be Near Street, I don't know.
Well, if we have one at the town hall,
No, that's true.
near street is
Well, the
good.
trouble is that people tend to follow street corners. I mean, they tend to align themselves with, that's where crosswalks tend to
The
be.
only reason we thought, I agree, that's true. The only reason town hall, because we have such.
Parking lot.
The parking lot.
You're
and then
asking
so
people to
many-
park there and then
Yeah.
cross the street to the
Right. The
town hall.
town parking lot is across the street from the town hall, and there ought to be a crosswalk.
Well, it's not quite, but yeah.
Pretty much.
That doesn't matter.
Just
Doesn't
about.
matter.
And I think around the pizzeria is probably the most dangerous spot in town because people
Oh, Casco
are
Mountain,
just
you said?
darting across that street.
Oh, sure, and no, yeah, right.
It's like they get pizza, they're in that street. I mean, how many times I've had to stop because somebody's like trying to get
Fine,
themselves
I know
killed.
at least one person has been hit.
Yeah.
Yes. Jay?
I believe that the most critical spot in our roads where there is no crosswalk is at Joshua's. It's compounded by the fact of the other road bearing off, bearing in. I've been calling DOT for several years, and they keep telling me no, because there is no curb cut on the northern side.
It's not the curb cut, it's the
It's line
line
of
of
sight.
sight.
Sidewalk.
Pardon?
It's the line of sight.
This is what they've been telling me.
Yeah, but you can add a curb
Wait,
cut though.
hang on.
Yeah.
And since they've been saying no curb cut, and parenthetically, I don't believe that the line of sight is a problem, because it is not significantly different from where Rock City Road comes down into the thing.
That's true, but those were older. Those crosswalks have been there for a long time.
Because I was, years ago, finally nagged the DOT into...
Well, you should have kept nagging them and got it
No.
at Joshua's.
So what I'm about to suggest is to spend some money, which I know you don't want to do, and make a curb
To spend
cut.
money.
And none of us want to do. Do you want us to spend money?
Just not the town's money.
Yeah, but that's private property. You got Joshua's and across the
And that's
street
the
is the
whole
Gill.
reason.
I
I'll take my turn when I
suggest
get my
that
turn.
we
Yeah.
find
You next.
a way to get an okay that rhymes. And to get a curb cut put in the north side of the road at Joshua's, and then demand that DOT put in a crosswalk.
Okay.
Now, I feel very strongly about this. I think that their argument that the sight lines are no good there is bull, because they're no worse than coming up the hill where you
Again,
can't see.
That was 30 years ago that those were put in, Jay. So it's not entirely bull, but I hear your point. So let me ask a question. Are we all in agreement that maybe 2 crosswalks in the middle of town could be reduced to 1?
Let's map it out.
I'm asking you.
Do
Yeah.
I get a turn to talk though?
Well, let's go over this.
I got a turn, okay. I mean, it's probably okay to eliminate, like you said, the house to cloud. So people coming out of Rock City Road can make the left-hand turn. That would definitely help.
If you
traffic.
had people only crossing on the one
That would
side,
definitely, yeah.
it would
I
help.
would want to look, again, I would want to take a look and say, yeah, pending a look firsthand, I would say, okay.
No, I would agree with that. I think we all just need to pause and take a look,
Yeah.
think about it for a week.
well, we're going to think about it. All I wanted is to get some sense of whether we were all on a similar page.
Yeah.
So we're all going to look at that one. We'll all take a look at Joshua's. We all agree that down at the pizzeria would be a good location.
Down right
Jay?
away.
Yeah.
Well, we're close to library lane. By putting it where we're going to put it by the town hall, that would handle
I was
library
wondering
lane.
about library lane,
That would
access
handle,
to
that
the
would handle
library.
library lane.
But it's very close.
Yeah, see, I've already had David Corrigan in looking at where, when you come out of Cuomo Drive, and if you're looking over the town hall, they've already agreed that the sight line is okay, but we're waiting for $5,000 to get an engineer to look at things like who owns the property, and to design it to the state of New York specs. So, about $5,000 to design it to state of New York specs. But I think it makes sense to do everything together.
Yeah.
I called David Corrigan today. I didn't get through. I'm going to try. I'm at the point now. I'm going to keep trying to get him to come look at the CVS spot.
So what I'd like you to do is
Okay.
to call him up.
Yes, and look at Joshua's.
We've got 4 things, and the 3 of us will meet.
Perfect.
Okay.
And so the 4 things are, well, he's already looked at the town hall area, and we're waiting for an engineer to design it. Getting rid of the house to cloud is one. Over by
Joshua's.
CVS is one, and Joshua's. So, what I wanted to share, though, and I know I've said it before at these meetings, but I'll say it again, is that this is the process. The process is first the DOT has to come and take a look and say, I would consider one here because the sight line is okay. And once the DOT says they'll consider one here, then you get the engineer to design it to New York State specifications, so they know who owns the sidewalk. Is it the town, the state, or the property owner? Is it private property? They need to know that. They need to design it. Do you need a curb cut? Do you need to add a curb cut? Once they design it, then we can figure out what it costs to build it, because we've got the design. And then, so in my view, it's best done as a two-part thing. First, get the money to do the design for all the crosswalks you want to do, and then get it designed. Then we'll know the cost of implementation. But the DOT would come first and say, it's possible here, or it's not. A curb cut you can put in, but in line of sight, you can't change.
No, right. Well, you could straighten the road.
Yes, I would agree with you.
Chop some of the buildings
Iris?
off.
Bill, I've already agreed, you asked a question about the single crosswalk.
Yes, we're all in agreement on 4 issues. Okay, Iris?
Okay. First, I was just going to say one thing about one thing, but everything keeps changing. I've got a few comments. Okay, about the bus and trying to put it down by Cumberland.
Mm-hmm.
I have not heard one word of concern about the people who have to drive out of Elwyn. They are not going to get out of there until all the buses are passed, because they cannot see. You got a big bus there. I mean, they got problems as it is on that corner. And now you're going to be putting a bus that's stopped there. You're not getting out until the bus.
How often does the bus come through,
there's
do we
4.
know? How many times a day?
I think 6 buses, 6 or 7 buses.
Yeah, but, I mean, they have to wait the whole time because they can't see past the bus
Right.
at all.
Well, it depends on which way they're turning and which side of the street the bus is on, and where the bus actually
Well,
stops.
however, if he's got a car who wants to go around the bus, right, they can't see that. So even if they want to turn right and go up the hill, they're going to be in trouble there. And so that's just one thing that I think.
I mean,
you
but
should
they
keep
already
in
have a
mind.
bus stop there. I
What?
mean, there is a bus stop there, so there are stopping there.
Yeah, but now you're adding more buses.
Right.
More stops.
But Troway and Ulster County both
But I've
stop
never
there.
noticed it being a problem when they stop to pick up the people sitting on the bench.
Trailways, or the county stops there
Yeah,
all
I'm
the
just
time.
saying now you're adding more. It's hard enough, you know it's hard enough to get out
Well, yeah, I
there.
mean, it's hard.
Look,
to
here's
get
the
out.
reality, is that we live in a small 2-lane town. There's X amount of cars, and we have to kind of spread them out.
Just bring it in.
Yeah, no, and
My
it's...
fellow neighbors.
And it's something that the bus companies already talked about and they're aware of.
Yeah.
And, you know, how much they take that into consideration.
And there are
We'll
more
see.
exit roads in that area downtown
Yeah, just go through
than
CVS.
around the green.
I'll get to you in...
The crosswalk at Joshua's. Now, I cross a lot, okay? And I will cross, but I'm very well aware that the car coming down may not see me. So I don't agree with putting a crosswalk there because more people will then cross there because they think it's
And it's
okay to
dangerous.
cross
Well,
there.
Did you put it
And
further
the
down?
car coming around.
I don't think the state's gonna allow it.
Well, I know, but I'm
it's-
hearing that you're all in favor of
Oh,
it.
no, I'm not in favor of it, because
Because someone who's
We're in favor
there
of,
a lot.
no, Iris, what we're in favor of is having the state look at it.
And
I
make their
I don't know that eliminating one of those crosswalks in the middle of town is the best thing to do. I'm not a traffic expert. We're just gonna mention that we had a discussion, that these are things we're looking at, they're the experts.
Well, I
So-
don't think you should even look at it because it's not a great idea.
But, well, we're being thorough by having the DOT weigh in. I think we're just trying to be thorough by having the DOT.
It's just not.
In answer to your real issue there about vehicles coming along not seeing you, my proposal states that every single crosswalk in town has to have one of those pylons,
Yeah.
which sticks up in the air, and vehicles can see that.
That won't work there, Jay, plain and simple, and I'll tell you why. We have one at either end of town right now. Actually, we only have one now. The other one got run over.
Or the summer.
I have to tell you that over the summer, no less than 20 times did I have to stop to get out to put one of those signs back up. Usually the one down by the lumberyard more than the one up here.
Right.
Clayton has stopped a similar number of times. That's the two of us dealing with that. That's almost every other day over the summer that we've had to get out. That's at the straightaway. There's no way, we kept losing them in the middle of town. There's not enough room for people to get around them that they're going to last. So it's a wonderful idea. It will not work.
An additional aspect of the plan that I submitted requires a police presence, not 24 hours a day, but enough of a presence to let motorists and truckers know that police are on hand,
What does that mean?
and that will have the effect of slowing traffic down, because a lot of in the past and in the present, those pylons being knocked over is from vehicles, and including trucks, going too damn fast.
See, I disagree with you there, Jay, because I don't think speeding's an issue in town.
Well,
And
I
the pol-
disagree.
No,
Yeah, we can disagree. I mean, I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but I have not experienced. Actually, I got mad at one, and it was a sheriff's deputy, and I did call to complain because I thought he was going too fast through town. I don't witness cars going too fast. The bigger problem is you've got people walking all over the place. You've got a narrow road. You've got cars parked through a good part of the town. And people are trying to weave in and out. And I just don't see how, even at the town hall, where it gets more congested, I think we can have them at either end of town. Once you get into town, there's just too much traffic. They're not gonna last. And again, think about the manpower it takes to keep those signs up. It's a lot of work, Jay.
You're right, and it would be very painful if, as and when someone is injured.
Can I respond to
Without
Iris?
a doubt.
Can I respond to Iris for just 1 second? Yeah, just so that you know, one of the things that David Corrigan from the State of New York DOT said is the New York State will not approve a crosswalk that they don't believe is safe.
Yeah.
So the Joshua's, they would never approve it just because we asked. They're only, them allowing a crosswalk is their statement that they agree that it's safe. And oh, by the way, then they require that some parking spaces go away because they want to make sure there's a good line of sight. They may say, well, this is a good enough space, but you may have to lose a parking space here or there on the road, otherwise you don't have good sight. So they're going to put in their requirements, but they won't approve it at all if they don't believe it does meet the safety.
And incidentally, Laura, when we talk to Corrigan, whether it's on the Joshua side or on the other side, I mean, that might make more sense and it might be a little safer. Because it is bad for folks coming out of Tannery Brook there, trying to make that turn. There's already a car there, there's that big tree
Yeah.
there, and now all of a sudden you add a crosswalk.
Oh,
So
right,
the other
right.
side might even make more sense.
Right,
but
so we'll have
some
a look
with
at-
it.
and see what the requirements would be. Yeah.
Iris,
You know,
continue.
Listen, taking two crosswalks and making it one, right at the corner of my house, that's a bad corner anyway, because people are crossing, and you've got Shindig there.
Mhm.
Their bench, their planter, their two sandwich signs, two garbage cans, and a telephone pole.
Mhm.
And now you want to shift
Well, that's why we're
all
going to
of
have
the
David.
people now, even in the smaller
Iris,
space,
that's why we're having David come take a look.
to, no, this is, yeah, but you're making the recommendations.
We're not making a recommendation, Iris.
Well,
We're
you
missing.
just-
No,
you're
you're
missing
missing.
that.
You're missing the point, and you're putting words in our mouth. We are making suggestions for things to them to take a look at. They are the experts. We are not. I don't know that it's a good
They're not
idea.
gonna think about, they're looking at the
Yeah.
traffic. They're not gonna think
They're looking at
about
safety.
the bench.
They're looking at
the
safety.
planter,
Iris,
the
they're-
garbage can.
they're-
But I'll tell you, as a driver through the middle of town, when you've got people walking in two directions, it's more confusing. If you can consolidate,
Yeah.
it might make it safer. It might not.
There. I'm just saying to just be aware of all the things that are happening right in that small space, and now you're pushing more people.
Well, keep it,
Maybe there's some
keep it,
things happening there that shouldn't be happening.
Right.
yeah. Also, keep in mind that on that side of the road that you're talking about, the crosswalk is already one. They come together at a point.
Yeah.
So we're not reducing anything on that side. It's the other sides that may or may not be affected.
Yeah, but a lot of people will stand on the other side of the telephone pole, yeah,
So,
because they're going that way.
okay. Did you have any more questions?
No, that's it.
That's it? Barry, you had a question?
Well, no, some statements. If you're giving out crosswalks, think about the one in front of the upstate cinema for people to walk across from one side to the other. Well, also the sign at Rock City Road telling you not to block the side street. It's a hidden sign.
I'm talking, I'm having discussion with the county on that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to put
No, it's there.
flashing lights or balloons or something around it to make people see it. Otherwise, they don't see it.
I want a spring trap. If you park there and you stop,
That's easy enough. About Airbnbs. I think it's a shame that realtors are promoting Airbnbs instead of long-term rentals. The only big problem is the U.S. Constitution. We can't prevent people from owning a place and renting it. They don't have to live there. It's their property. It's, it's what the Constitution says. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness and property. So best way to do it is to manage it, which is uniform police activity to make sure that nothing really is untoward happening at these places. And they should also know where these places are and who the owners are, and have access and phone numbers to all these people. We should have a designated person to do that in the police department.
Well, that's good.
it's a zoning issue. It's not a police
It's
issue.
going to be more.
Well, enforcement is a police
No,
management.
it's a zoning issue. It's a zoning issue.
Well, okay. You need to have someone in uniform.
Let me just-
You're going to put a zoning person in
Hold
uniform?
on.
The application that's in development requires not only the owner's address and phone numbers and everything, but also requires if it's being managed by somebody, or who's the person, they have to respond in a certain amount of time and all those things. It really does though have to, I mean, if there's an emergency or a loud noise complaint, yes, that will go to the police, and then they would notify the enforcement officer later on, but the immediate action would be taken by the police. But we're also thinking about building in, if there's a number of violations, you lose your license.
Right.
There's going to be lots of things just like you're saying in the piece. But you're right, it's a balancing act of what's allowed and people are free to
Who
serve.
handles the zoning infringements?
That would be the enforcement officer.
The building department.
The building inspector has to go and do
But
that.
what we're hoping to do, Barry, is
I
take.
hope you can work it out, because it doesn't seem to really put the responsibility on the building inspector when it really
Well,
should be
because
uniform.
there's things like,
person now.
first of all, is it inspected? Is the place safe? Okay? That has to be
Fire
done.
code.
Is it a fire inspector?
Right,
All that
right.
has to be done by the zoning officer. And the registration would have to go through the zoning office
I'm talking
too.
about sound noise and disturbance.
Well, that would be police, yes.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right, but,
Well, keep in mind that the noise ordinance right now is in the zoning law, which is enforced by the ZEO.
but you're not calling.
We are now talking about a standalone law that would be enforced by the police.
And you're reinventing the wheel, because you tried this 25 years ago.
Well, I didn't.
Not you.
I didn't.
But the town board did. And it didn't work. I mean, you have a machine that supposedly registered certain decibels, but I remember it was the open playhouse, Woodstock Playhouse, which was open, having lots of concerts that were loud. I know I was at one, and it was the loudest I've ever heard.
Well, Barry-
any concert. But you couldn't enforce the noise level.
I have to disagree with you. We're not here reinventing the wheel. We have a law that's not easily enforced. We're stepping back and we're going to go left or right and come up with a better law. that
You
can
have a
be
law that
enforced.
says a noise ordinance law now?
In the zoning law, for
It's a
many,
zoning
many
law.
years, yes. We're going to, so to say we're reinventing the wheel, it's not a wheel, it's a clunker. It's not working. We're coming up with a better idea, which is what boards should do.
I'm saying that there was activity back then,
Didn't work,
and it didn't work.
and now we're going
And
to,
you should look at that, why it didn't work, is what I'm saying. That's what reinventing.
that's what we're doing, and that's what I did with Clayton, and that's what I'm doing with the building
Well,
inspector.
that's what I meant by reinventing wheel. You don't think that this is the first time it happened, is what
No,
I'm
it's
saying.
been going on for years.
Yeah, it's been going on for, and I think the problem is what Laura said, is there's no real technology that you can gauge what the decibel level
Well, no,
is.
that's not true. You can get sound meters. Actually, I have one on my phone. The question is whether they'll hold up in court or not.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, which is why we're looking at this Sorgerties law that doesn't require decibels.
Well, that's subjective, but that's not gonna hold up in law either.
Well, but it says if you can hear it from 60 feet from the property, if you can hear it from 60 feet,
Well, I have a hard problem hearing, and there's some people that have
police
acute sound
police
impairment.
officers have to have their hearing checked.
So it's going to be it's going to be subjective, whatever it is. So you need a machine to really test the level, and that was the problem back then. There wasn't an adequate machine, and it didn't work back then. And I hope you can work it now, because certainly
We're working on it.
with bars going full blast, the neighbors are at
With
a loss.
regard to the Constitution, we do have a right to regulate what one can do with their home. It's called a zoning law. So to say that prohibits us from regulating it is not true. And in fact, right now, our zoning law prohibits people from renting out their homes short-term if they're not present. So
It does prohibit that?
our law right
Yeah.
now, and,
And has there been any lawsuits against you about
no,
that?
no.
And you don't envision any?
You never know.
I would think that
I,
the Airbnb, Central, wherever that is, would be very concerned about that law.
well, yes, they are concerned about
They would
that.
sue you for that.
Well, I don't know that they would sue because they really don't have any standing. They're just a platform. They wouldn't sue us. It would be a property owner that would sue us. My guess is that the property owner would not win because, we've had attorneys look at our law and agree that it's a pretty good law.
Yeah.
Now, what Richard's working on, it's a very strict law. It really, it clamps down, and we all agree that B&Bs do offer positives to the town. So we're looking at how we can better regulate them
Exactly.
to get what we want.
And be proactive about it.
Presently, what we're dealing with, to try and clamp down, and in fact, I did ask the board last summer, what direction, and it was agreed the majority of the board didn't, want to do anything at the moment, and that was fine, I respected that. So nothing was put in the budget. We don't have the money to go out and do these enforcements. We're looking into putting something into the budget this year to handle that. But the building inspector, as complaints are coming in, has been dealing and sending out letters, and we seem to be getting compliance. I will also tell you, having sat in the supervisor's office for 2 years, because Jeremy was sick last year, in and out, and even the year before, so almost 3 years now, I've had involvement in that office. The calls for complaints for Airbnbs has dropped drastically this year. The problem hasn't gone away.
Right.
I'm not going to make that claim, but I think the message is getting out to people
Right.
that there's a problem and we need to resolve it. And I think we'll resolve it. I'm very optimistic. I know a little about what Richard's...
Just one thing too, Barry, on the enforcement part, there'll be fees with this application. Those fees, and it depends on what the board decides to do, but ultimately, I see those fees paying for additional
That's what I was
enforcement.
going to suggest.
Yeah.
If you go to the county and say you want fees for these Airbnbs,
Well, this
I
is
think they're the
separate.
only one that could really
This is separate.
collect them.
No.
You don't think you could collect them?
What we're going to do is I envision that Richard and his committee will come back to this board with some type of permitting process.
A fee, permit, yeah.
Yes, whether it goes for a site plan review or whether it just goes to the building department who goes out and does a safety inspection, there will be some type of fee, including an inspection fee for safety inspections.
Right.
So we will recognize revenue to help pay for this
No, that's
enforcement.
what I was gonna,
And what-
But we don't have that right.
No, not
Yeah.
yet.
but would the county supersede you if they put
No.
out another?
No,
That's
the
the bedroom
county,
tax.
what the county will do is a sales tax. Actually, the county should be collecting a sales tax
And
Right.
that,
and a pillow tax.
Right.
Because if you go down to the Millstream Inn, the hotel in town, what is it, 2%?
2%.
There's a 2% tax, so you pay your 8% sales tax
Right, and a 2%.
and 2% on top of that.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Now, Laura brought up, that this is the county's been squabbling back and forth. I hope that they do come clean on that and start to collect, because we're missing out on a lot. They're missing out on revenue.
Yeah.
We're missing out on
But
revenue.
you would collect a different fee, is what you're saying?
We would collect permit fees and inspection
And
fees.
inspection,
and what we're looking.
And we would get a piece of the pillow tax and sales tax fee.
which I.
And what we're looking at probably, and again, it's up to the board to decide this, is a fee based on the number of bedrooms in the unit you have,
Yeah.
or how many units you got. And, then it gets into things like special use permits and stuff.
Then you can afford to hire a person to, or
That's
have
the
someone designated
That's
to
the
do the inspections and be actually proactive in checking.
We have
out
a
these
part, we
places.
have a part-time inspector who does the fire inspections on all the businesses.
Oh, good.
That person would probably come on full-time.
What's gonna happen is, it's gonna need some seed money,
Yeah.
because to get the thing kicked off. And this isn't gonna go, there's over 600 places in Woodstock advertised.
Right,
So
it's a lot of places.
A new person coming in the enforcement area isn't gonna do it overnight. It's gonna take some time to weed through this.
But one person will then get to know all these 600 and know that 450, you don't have to worry about, because they're responsible landowners.
They're perfectly legal.
So you have 150 to do
They're
with.
perfectly legal.
Yeah, and it's knowledge that's going to help you in this.
Once we get a permit process and a
Process.
fee schedule, I think compliance people will fall into place.
Yeah, people will want
I
to
will-
obey the law.
I will tell you that, again, over the 3 years that I've been in and out of the supervisor's office, every time we've mentioned this, and Nick writes something about us grumbling about B&Bs, there's a panic. And I get
The realtors.
telephone. Realtors, people who own these things, and most of the people who have called all have, they all live in the building, so they're actually all legal.
Right,
They just need to be permitted,
Right.
and they're not permitted. But otherwise, they and I say, look, this is probably where we'll end up with some type of permit. Oh, that's great, and an inspection, that's wonderful. So there doesn't seem to be tremendous resistance. They just
You explain it.
yeah.
There's a fear. There's a fear of the unknown of what that means. Yeah, no, I agree.
So,
I agree. Thanks.
any other comments from the board?
No.
Yes.
Oh, please.
What? I'll entertain a motion.
I second it.
Hurry up, Jay. We want to go home.
Me too. I haven't had supper yet either.
Okay.
I'd like to point out that this Sunday evening on PBS stations, the showing the first segment of the Ken Burns, Kim Novak film on Vietnam is going to occur. I know that it's an absolutely crucial event and question that we all have to not only live with, but feel about and think about. And the one final thing that I'd like to say is that I don't have any great hopes for the Burns-Novick film, and I'll tell you why. It does not start at the beginning of American involvement in Vietnam, which happened in 1945. 1945. And the issue that attached us from that point on in Vietnam was our role as a part of the Allies after World War II, when we granted the French the right to go back to their Indonesian colonies, where the French, white people, were trying to do their best to impoverish in various ways the darker skinned people in Indochina. And from that point on, in financial ways, in terms of $4 billion.
I have two more things, Jackie, I forgot.
In terms of military advisors who worked with the French and eventually with others. We've been involved for a long, long time. But please watch that thing.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Two other things that I just want to bring up real quickly. It's been my experience that Jeremy the supervisor, had the vote for the Coalition of Watershed Towns, but I will just mention to the board. So I have a ballot here. There are two candidates for 2-year terms, for 2 terms. A town board member, Peter Friedel from Olive, and town board member Greg Vacurio from Denning, and an alternate, Drew Bogus, town board member from Olive. So I had asked you a long time ago if anybody was interested.
Well, I did that for a couple of years,
Yeah.
and I know that, yeah. It's a long run.
It's a long journey. Olive and Denning have far more to lose, so I'm very satisfied that they will look at. Okay.
Yeah, no, I
So I'm
don't
going to go ahead and do that. The other thing is, Jay, I meant to bring it up earlier because you chastised me a week or two ago for not moving on the wellhead protection law. Okay, and you again failed to bring it up tonight.
I didn't know that I...
Well, we talked the other day about, if you wanted to bring it to the board.
No, Bill, I believe, the last communication that I had was that we were looking to get a change made to the map that Steve Winkley had produced in order to solve a problem that the planning board had.
Right, but...
And that I would contact you as soon as that was done.
But I thought you were going to bring to the board the fact that the planning board has sent us a letter saying, do not pass this.
Yeah.
And you were going to bring to, before you change any maps, I think you should bring to the table to the board
Yes.
whether we want to override a planning board recommendation or not.
Well, can I add
Well,
to that?
Yes.
So I do think the planning board, because the planning board put together some law change recommendations, and I think that they were told you should wait while the comprehensive plan work is done, and then they say, well, what about this watershed thing? Shouldn't they also wait till the comprehensive plan work is done? So I do think that there's a little bit of, maybe the same answer should be given to both. I helped the planning board with those law changes. I was on Jay's committee with the watershed law changes. I think they both have value, but I do think part of the planning board's thought is they're waiting for their laws to be considered until the comprehensive plan work is done, and that perhaps the watershed timing ought to fit at the same time.
Now, I will remind the board that last year, we were moving forward with those zoning changes. And then there were a couple of issues that came up, and I thought we all agreed, okay, well, at this point, now we're starting the comprehensive plan, let's wait.
Sure, right.
I agree. So you're in favor of waiting until...
Well, I think they can all go together. I think that Jay and the work with Steve Winkley should continue, but as far as implementing, we should look at things all together, I think.
But are you willing to override the planning board, or do you want to hold off?
Bill, I think that's an unfair question. I think that we should
Why is
have all the material in front of us before we make questions and decisions like that.
Well, I think we should be negotiating with the planning board anyway, because I read...
The planning board,
Jay, you don't have the floor.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure which iteration of planning board feedback we're talking about, but I know I was looking at one set of planning board feedback, and they raised some valid questions, and I think negotiating and resolving, which I think Jay is working on, so I don't know as you want to be overriding them. I think we need to do some more work to negotiate and resolve their issues before...
To be clear, what Jay's committee is going to make one change to the map, but all the other issues they were going to dispense with, not deal with. So the question is the board ready, wanting to move forward against the plan?
Well, I have, being a newbie on this, I don't have anything before me. I don't know exactly. I know a little bit of what you're talking about, but I think we need to have some stuff before us and go over it.
Yeah, and I think we.
I agree.
So I think we need to
I
listen
can't say tonight.
Yeah, I think we should listen to the planning board, and we should try to work through the issues, because they brought a lot about. So I don't want to go slam dunk, because when I was at one of their meetings, and they were talking about the issues that they had documented, they had a lot of...
So you believe they bring up valid issues, as do I.
That we should work through.
As do I,
We shouldn't
okay.
slam dunk, and we should work through.
And you're...
I'd like to see
Yeah, I
more
don't want to
information.
go against the planning board, number one, and
So we should continue to talk about that.
I don't want to assume that the comprehensive plan is going to solve all our
Everything.
problems.
Yeah,
Because it's not. The comprehensive plan is more of a oversee of where we want to go and what we want to do. They're not into the details and specifics of all these little issues we have to deal with. Just like Richard's doing the Airbnb, we need to deal with the specifics of these issues. And the comprehensive plan has more of a kind of oversees all that, as opposed to dealing with all the specifics.
Right, but if I could just...
Kathy is right, because if she were incorrect, they wouldn't need us.
Right. Well, and just to be clear, with the issue about the Airbnb, it wasn't that Jeremy had hoped that it would solve the problem. It was that he hopes that it would give guidance as to which direction the community want to go.
Yeah, and that's still and the comprehensive plan is giving guidance for a lot of things, but the specific stuff about the planning board decision, I think we have to look at it carefully.
Right, but if I could just kind of respond to that too, is I think the reason why people thought we should wait for the comprehensive plan is because, and I agree 100% with what you're saying, is going to give guidance of where we as a community it's the community saying where the community wants to go, and instead of putting a plan in right before that, let's just wait till we know where we want to go, so we know that the detail is in line with that. So I agree with you 100%. The comprehensive plan is not going to give the detail nitty-gritty for everything, but you want to know the big direction of where you're going, so that you know if this nitty-gritty piece you did fits in with that or is against it. So that was the reason, not that the comprehensive plan is going to solve all those details, but because we want to make sure that these other laws we put in place don't go against the general direction.
Okay.
All right.
So the planning board recommendations came to us in May.
A while back.
You've all seen it. So then the direction the committee, Jay's committee, should go is trying to deal with their concerns. Are we in agreement?
I think so. To understand the concerns fully and try to do it as much coming together as possible.
Okay, Richard, you're in agreement there. Okay.
Ed Sanders and George Washington.
Okay.
And me.
Okay.
And we're aware. The Aquifer Protection Gang is aware of the planning board's proposals. They don't write laws; they write proposals. And we will, as soon as we have this technical thing worked out about improving the map, which relates directly to one of the planning board's
what concerns?
concerns. And at that point, as soon as we have it, which should be a matter of day or two or whatever, I will then inform the supervisor that we are ready to present our proposal.
Okay.
And
But it sounds like the board wants to further consider the planning board's issues.
of course, the board could and should consider anything and everything.
Okay.
Are you saying that they are suggesting that they should be considered separately?
No, I think what I'm hearing from the board is that we want your committee to look into the concerns and issues raised by the planning board and work to implement them into your recommendation.
Or not.
Or no?
Well,
But if you
but
encourage
if the
just
four
one,
board members are saying we want them worked in,
Well, we will, I think, deal with that during the presentation and discussion.
And if we disagree, we will have to
Yeah, if we
rewrite what we
disagree.
want.
well, I think it'll be an exciting meeting, because if we have the Aquifer Plan Committee saying, here's what we think should happen, you have the planning board that issued, say, 6 items and only 1 was addressed, they're still gonna have 5 items that they're gonna come to the same meeting and be passionate about. So the more coming together and compromise is done before it's presented, the less dissension there will be.
I agree. Well, there's some direction for you to take or not, Jay.
Okay.
Don't forget this weekend, the comedy festival.
Yes, the
Yay.
comedy festival. Sunday is the Lake Hills First Pancake Breakfast, 8 to noon. So come on out and have some pancakes. With that, I'll call for adjournment.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye. okay. If you need
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, but if I do, I'll let you know. But I'll do the same.
Okay, yes,
Sir, before you continue.
because I read Jesse's